So we'll just wait for a couple of
Sure.
attendees to join, and then we normally start. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on an early Saturday morning. I am Praneeth. I'm the Associate Director of University Partnerships and the Business Head for UG division at upGrad, the Bachelor division at upGrad. And I'm hosting Professor Siddharth Deshmukh from MICA this morning, who's also an adjunct faculty at the University of Southampton. But even more important, he's had about 25 years of marketing experience as a consultant, marketer, someone who's been advising some of the larger startups across the world with his domain. So I am super thrilled to be hosting you, sir. We will get started in a little bit, and which makes me believe that I may have to introduce you once again, but I'm sure it's going to be worth the wait. We will start at 11:05 sharp, but I'd love for you to take the stage and introduce yourself, because I'm sure you can do it so much better.
I know. I think you've done a fantastic job. I like listening to lies like this because it always makes me feel good. So it's a good start. I would say to my morning. I'm in the UK right now, wherein I'm teaching at the University of Southampton. I will be traveling next week to MICA, wherein I teach there, and so on and so forth. So, which is why my Insta handle is called the Traveling Professor, and even I guess the LinkedIn says the same. And the fact is that I travel, I teach, I learn when I teach, and I repeat. So that's my personal brand for you. It is essentially something that has helped me navigate this whole world that I live in, wherein I'm teaching digital. Before which I was also a dean at MICA, and before that I was, as you said, in the land of startups, advising marketing and business transformation in our digital world. I was also working in Sony and AT&T, Sony Entertainment Television and AT&T before it became Idea in India. So a bit of that sort of experience as well. And I'm from the first batch of MICA, which is interesting. They say that the bad students have to go twice to the same institute. So I went for the second time as dean. So that was interesting. Right now, I'm an adjunct faculty, yes, at Southampton, but also at MICA. And visiting faculty across various other places like SPGen, and I teach at upGrad as well. So that is my background.
That is absolutely lovely to hear. I am always, and for the most part, feeling very fortunate, as I usually do when I host someone like you. I think, like you were saying, when you teach, you get to learn. Likewise, when I host someone like yourself, I think there's so much more to learn, so much more to apply, and take back to the rooms where I lead, to the halls where I lead, to the teams which I lead. And I think from each other's experiences, there's just so much that you can do and learn. So I am looking forward to where this goes with you. I am absolutely thrilled. I think now is going to be a good time to start. So just to brief our viewers this morning on what is it that we're largely going to be speaking about. So essentially, Dr. Deshmukh, like I mentioned, is an expert with marketing. And in a sense, we're looking at new age startups. What is the kind of hyper-personalized strategy can they go in for or design for themselves to attract any consumer, meet them where they are? They may be on Facebook, they may be on their website, they may be in a store. But how do you build or shape a consistent consumer experience throughout? And why is it so important? The context here being that if you and I are trying to book a hotel for one night, we're going to 5 or 6 different platforms to compare the price, to compare the experience, to Uh, and why is it that if it's not constant at every channel we visit, or if it's not designed to be like that, uh, more leads would rather leak than actually move through the funnel? So my first one to you, sir, is I'd love to know about your perspective on omni-channel marketing and omni-channel consumer experience, and why is it so important now more than ever?
Right. So thank you. There's a lot there. So what I'm going to do is maybe unpick that a bit and look at some of the core aspects. Firstly, I guess when we say omni-channel, it's different from multi-channel. Multi-channel means that you're actually literally putting out a commercial, different sorts of messages across platforms or whatever. Omni-channel is that you're trying to create one sort of experience for the end consumer across channels, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. The interesting thing is that most of us and most textbooks or most practitioners don't really understand that we ourselves are quite disintegrated, right? As customers, we are not the same across platforms. Praneeth, you're not the same on LinkedIn. You're not the same right now on Zoom. You're not the same on Instagram. So which means that different personas actually get called out when we are on different platforms without us realizing it, right? We are wearing the proverbial suit on LinkedIn and Zoom. Maybe you're wearing a suit and some shorts below, but the fact is that on Instagram, you're showing your left profile or your right profile and stuff like that. So now this adds an additional problem to omni-channel marketing. So because if you have one message, right, which you're trying to give across this person, but this person she is different across different platforms, then will the same message work equally well? So that is a big challenge that any omni-channel strategy faces. And I think that's a good starting point. And mostly, whenever you're trying to do an omni-channel strategy, if I look at the way in which, let's say you're trying to buy a two-wheeler or a car, right? I think that one of the last things that you will do, the first thing you will do is you'll ask your friend, you'll ask your people on WhatsApp, you might go to a Quora, you might go to a Reddit, you might go to Cyber Steering, you might go to Car Deco, whatever. The last thing you'll do is go to the website, because you know that on the website, you're going to get a bunch of lies, okay, as a consumer. So the second challenge that we have is, okay, we are going to actually look at a consumer who is trying to avoid you, which now means that you as an omni-channel marketer are trying to give one message to a consumer who's changing across platforms, and that person is actively trying to avoid you as well. Which means that you're basically controlling the uncontrollables, and that's the art of omni-channel marketing, controlling the uncontrollables.
Wow. Wow. At this point, I'm trying to think that there are so many different types of human beings and how they generally want or intend to shop. And some of them want a very low touch experience where the brand does not give them a call, like myself. We will take our own sweet course of time. It may be within a day or 3 or 4 or 5 or a week, but we don't want to be contacted until or unless I want.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm also someone who wants a 24/7 access to that brand, if I may.
Yeah.
And then there's someone, maybe like yourself, who's saying, I have made up my mind, but I want you to give me a call and I want you to chase me for the next 3 days and get it closed.
Yeah.
And then how do you feel about the fact that when I'm trying to design a journey for an experience of anyone who's a lead for me, or is someone who I feel is slightly interested in what I want to sell, there are going to be some key highlights of influence, or in that entire journey, some points where I have, as a brand, some chance to influence them, to influence the lead than I would have in the next stage. But like I said, these two different human beings, how do I still make a very uniform?
Yeah. So it's firstly the problem becomes even more difficult with what I just said, which is you, Praneeth, are going to be a different person if you're shopping with friends, and you're going to be a different person if you're shopping online. If you're, let's say, you're trying to buy a pair of black jeans, let's understand the problem, because you don't have a pair of skinny black jeans, and that's what you want, and so you go to Amazon and you buy this the pair of jeans, right? And it's so easy. You did it, finished. But imagine the same Praneeth going to a mall with friends, and you say, "Oh, I see this pair of jeans, and let me try it out, guys. I want to see it." So you go into the trial room, you change, and you come out, and you ask your friends, "Hey, what do you think?" And your friends go, "Nahi, I don't think it's working for you." So you're not going to buy the same pair of jeans, which you would have bought online. So the fact is that even in your own journey, forget designing it for you and designing it for me. It is very difficult for me to predict you the way in which you're going to behave. You're not going to behave the same way in different contexts. Now, for me, what I need to actually understand is that the customer journey that you just spoke of, as a marketer, what do I need to understand? That it's not linear. It's not straightforward. It is like a dance of seduction. So if you're dancing, so then sometimes I'm at one stage, then I go back, and that's what happens, right? We're not always going to behave in a predictable way. Aha, this person's aware now, this person's interested now, this person's desirous now, this person is acting. That's what marketing textbooks say, right? But it is way more funny and complicated than that, because you keep moving, right? You keep changing your mind. Just think in terms of human interactions. You keep changing your mind. Sometimes you want to be pursued, sometimes you don't want to. You want to be left alone. So how do you design an omni-channel strategy for that? So for that, you really have to be connected to how that person is in that context. You cannot really focus on creating a message first and saying, "Oh, how do I deliver this message by tweaking this message to this person on Instagram or whatever?" Yeah. What you have to say is, okay, how is Praneeth right now? Is he in awareness stage? Is he actually considering things? Is he open right now? Is he tribal? Is he individual? Is he logical right now? Is he very emotional? Is he like actually reacting to things? Because Praneeth is capable of all of those things, isn't it? And what I have to understand is what Praneeth is doing right now. So the same message has to be tailored for that. So if you're talking of doing omni-channel marketing, forget how to deliver the same message to Praneeth and Siddharth. You have to actually focus on how do I get to Praneeth's right persona. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yes. Which brings me to the fact that how does a brand at this stage actually use analytics or machine learning to hyper personalize this experience for every single individual? For instance, for upGrad, I think we've got now about 7.7 million students. And I'm trying to, the way you said, how do I do? I mean, you're talking about me. And like you said, there are so many sides to me, and at different points of when I'm interacting with a brand on their official side versus how I'm interacting with the brand when they're giving me a call versus how I'm interacting with a brand when a friend is trying to refer that brand to me. And so with all of that, how, how do you turn so agile, so machine learning driven that you understand and then you hyper personalize at every step in the journey? What does the human being actually want next? What does the brand do? Do they write you an email? Do they shoot you an ad? Do they give you a call? How do you look at that complexity and solve it?
I think the complexity is there, and I'm going to first give a clue through an experiment that I'm going to do with you. And then maybe we'll come to some of the potential answers, right?
Sure.
As to what a brand can do, right? Because most of us don't really understand what a brand is. Because a lot of times we're looking at brand as the combination of logo, icon. We're looking at the messaging. We're looking at all of that, right? But let's just go through this experiment. I'm going to say a few sentences, and you're going to tell me what remains behind in your head, right?
Sure. Great.
I'm honest. Honesty is the best policy. Honest, honest, honest. That's my middle name. Honesty is better than cleanliness and godliness. Mahatma Gandhi believed in honesty, and so do I. What remains behind in your head?
Well, I think the fact that this brand, if it were to be, would want the word honest, or the brand,
Forget what the brand wants. What remains behind in your head?
just one word, honest.
You're saying that because you're being kind to me, right? What is actually going on in your head is what a goddamn liar this person is. Why does this person need to say that he is honest all the time? He has something to hide. He is a politician. Only politicians talk about honesty so much. If you're really honest, why do you need to say you're honest?
Right.
So that is actually happening at the back of your mind. Like, what is going on? Why? So then what happens is that we need to understand, okay, so it's not about the messaging that a brand is giving. In a sophisticated digital world, it's about what remains behind in my head after you've finished your talk. Because I'm getting information from a lot of these different sources, and I'm getting information from you,
Right.
about you. So which means that I'm more interested as a marketer in what remains behind in your head rather than what I'm saying.
Okay, so you're saying I pass down a message or a story, and it's about the passive tone that it leaves behind rather than what I'm actively mentioning to you day in and day out.
Yeah, because we think too highly of ourselves as marketers. We actually think that when we say something, people will take us literally, but that's not what happens. There are filters. There are filters in the external world and the internal world, which means that the message, by the time it becomes the residue, is what your brand is. Your brand is not the message; it's the residue,
Got
right?
it?
Of what remains behind. Now, therefore, a marketer has to develop a personalized strategy which creates that right residue.
Got it?
Right? You with me so far? Yeah. So which then means that it doesn't matter what messages you give. You don't need to be consistent as much as you thought. What you need to do is ensure that you create a consistent residue. So if you look, and I can give you a very specific example of it. So if you look at Nike, right?
Yeah.
It's a very nice example because
Yes.
Nike does stuff with all Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Nike does stuff with celebrities.
Yes.
Nike sponsors a running community.
Oh, yes.
Nike does various things. So you're like, what is this consistent messaging? There is no consistent messaging. What is actually happening is, isn't it? There's no consistent messaging. There's some Black Lives Matter, there's some running community. What Nike has figured out is how to create that right residue. So if I then now look at it from the residual perspective, the only thing that I understand is, oh, Nike gets me. I'm a millennial who likes running. My value system is inclusive and diverse. My value system is actually connected to the fact that I am inspired by celebrities who are sports people who are of a certain kind. So all of that is with me. That's my value system. Now, when Nike is communicating these different messages, actually it's doing an omni-channel strategy, right? Because what it's doing is that it's giving you the right residue. I am able to trust Nike because that is the keyword over here. In a world of so many different sort of information sources and so much of information coming to you at the same time. What is critical is for you to develop trust as a brand through your omni-channel strategy or whatever it is. Now, what we are seeing is, oh, okay, so Nike understands that I have to create trust with this residue, which means I have to connect through a specific, set of platforms. And there you go. And you can have many such examples. What we need to understand is conventional, we can't put the conventional marketing lens to a digital world, which is data driven. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, Nike is doing a very fair job. I recently heard that Nike also sends a personalized fitness uh, weekly routine and timetable of what you should, when you
Yeah.
should, what do you, uh, how far should you be doing it, and it does strike to me that the approach that they take now that you're saying about it is I am more likely to trust them with my life. And of course, then it takes it down to what I wear and the shoes I wear, the shorts I wear, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
Then I any brand that wasn't doing this for me, including
Exactly.
clubs and whatnot. They're making groups and whatnot. And I think I get what you're saying. I think some of these brands think about my experience with life with them and not just limited to what I'm wearing from them. Or
Yeah, correct. Not the functional benefit, but the benefit of values. So
wow,
not, yeah, you get what I'm saying. Now the interesting thing is you trust Nike, which it has achieved in the top of the funnel with all of the stuff, which is why you're giving data to Nike, which
absolutely.
is why it's giving personalized messages back to you
Uh,
with first party data. Because with all the privacy concerns and with all the filters and with all the avoidance of advertising that we do, just think about how difficult it is to rely on second and third party data to actually create an omni-channel strategy. So the strategy has to be, I create trust, you give me your data because I've created trust with you, and then I can do stuff which is personalized. I cannot do personalized stuff if you are firstly changing across platforms and you are actually actively avoiding me.
I get that. Okay. Right. So I have to, yeah, I mean, you're saying how I know you should be a direct dialogue that I have with you rather than getting to
Yeah,
know from somewhere else, because that
yeah,
may not be authentic
right.
or rightful for me to decide what you're looking for as your next step than it would if you were straight away talking to me.
Yeah,
Wow. Oh, great. There's one more term that I have been reading a lot about
sure.
is how do you find leads that are ready to have a dialogue with a brand?
You're right.
How do you look at that aspect that so supposedly with us as a brand, we get about 1,200 leads a day. And these are folks who've signed up on our campaigns or who are viewing our site or XYZ. And how now the smartest students, the smartest of the lot, may not need me to speak to them because they know what they want. All they want is for us to get them a call and close it. But I think these are just 2 or 3% of the complete set. The larger chunk is still going to be those who I want to speak to and actually mentor and make them go a certain way as per what I fetch from them on the call, where they're going, their goals, which course do they want, XYZ. How do I figure that out at the onset? Or how do I design a strategy where I can find the dialogue seeking readiness in students?
I think the core aspect is that marketing and sales actually are don't go hand in hand. Marketing exists to kill sales. So let's understand that the better you do marketing, the lesser you actually
Absolutely, yes.
right. So therefore, because marketing is the pull function. So what you're trying to figure out is, of course, those 3% of people who will come in, they're already done all the, the thinking and all of that. That's great. Now you're talking to the people who are, undecided, and the worst thing any company can do is to try and sell them something. Yeah. So which is why you go the education route, you go the influence route, or you go the incentives route. So education, incentives, or influence. Now, what works better is based upon how much time you have with the prospect. So if I look at education always takes a long time, which is why professors like me are never, complimented immediately. Professors like me are complimented once you start working and say, oh shit, that guy said that. And now I understand what he's saying. Okay, let me do that. So that's where how education works. If I look at incentives work very well in the shortest possible term. And if I look at influence, it works in the midterm. So if I use an influencer or whatever, that works in the midterm. Now, why am I saying this? These are three legit ways in which you can actually try and do that conversion. But a lot of times, the kind of language and the messaging that we are using is very sales driven. We are trying to convert. And the more we try to convert, when we haven't worked at the top of the funnel, you're going to find people who need pushing, which means sales. And that is where the problem is. It depends upon whether, see, like you and a bunch of your friends are going to the swimming pool. You're really excited because you want to jump into the pool. The other guy is being dragged because he's kicking and screaming, as a child, kicking and screaming because he doesn't want to go to. Once he's in the pool, he'll really enjoy it, right? But you, this cohort of friends that all are going to the pool are going to have different attitudes by the time they reach the pool. And you're asking me, how do I recognize whose attitude is positive and who's, and I'm saying that if you've done your work before the person has come to the pool at the top of the funnel by building your brand in a way that it can be trusted, then you can focus on having a real conversation with that person when he is at the pool. You cannot have a conversation wherein you're trying to convince somebody at the pool, because that is going to end up in tears.
So what you're essentially saying is the conversational readiness that I intend to forge cannot at that point. It has coming from a point of trust that you've already built with that lead.
Yes.
Way prior to them entering your funnel, because they know they can speak to you. But it has to come from a point of influence or
education
or incentives. But the influence is more likely to be a midterm thing where you can cast or eclipse them.
Yeah.
Saying that that brand has, or that brand has more influence on this domain than anyone else would, and so that brand that brand has more likely to have influence on how I am thinking, and these are the guys who I want to meet with. And then there's one route, like you said, that you inform them so much that they feel that if they want to know as much as they want about the domain, it's you.
Yeah.
You can't sell.
No.
You can inform.
No. Yeah.
How do you develop that ability to wait that while? I think the biggest problem that I see with brands is they are reckless when they're trying to sell. They don't wait. Or there are just so many startups that they feel that we're not Nike, that we can wait that long. How do you look at that issue? I might just be asking you something which can be behaviorally fixed rather than which may.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that we need to understand is let me give you an example first. Housewives between 30 to 45 were going to Amazon after 9 o'clock at night Okay, it's a real one, right? Amazon, you can take any other e-commerce company. Let's just call it Amazon, right?
Got
They're going to the 30 to 45 after 9 o'clock at night, putting a lot of stuff in the shopping cart, but not buying anything. So if I was a conventional marketer, what I'd be doing is I would say, wow, let me retarget them. Let me remarket to them. Let me incentivize. Okay. Let me try and, figure out a way in which I can give them a deal and we will convert. I mean, these are like,
Yeah.
ready for taking. Nobody was converting with all of those things. Like, what the hell is happening here? Right. Then they realized that for the housewife, this was her me time. She had fed her stupid husband who was watching TV. The kids were either doing their homework or sleeping. Or, this was her after a really tough day. This was her me time, in which she was actually she was leading a fantasy life and she was choosing to spend it on Amazon. She was actually literally picking up stuff and putting it. She never had any intention to buy. Never. She was just doing a fantasy thing. Now, when you realize that that's a customer insight, when you realize that you actually have a true handle on the consumer. Now, how do you get this true handle? By not trying to push. First of all, trying to understand what this, as you said, behavior represents. This behavior represents the fact that she is chilling out. So now, if I was Amazon, how would I think? I would think, okay, let me create a wish list for her. Let me create maybe a Pinterest board thing type interface for her. Something else, because now I'm gaining her trust, because now when I am in a situation wherein I'm doing all of this, I am building out on something that is personalized for her. She has already figured out a hack in which she is using Amazon for her me time. Now, if you interrupt, that's never going to work. But if you build on it, it is going to work. So how do you do this? How do you actually do it to people who are right there? Understand that you think that they are there, but they may not be there because it's a dance. It's not a linear process. What you have to do is when you say funnel, you're only focusing on the bottom of the funnel, which is like in the action area or the conversion area or whatever. You should be looking at top or even before the top of the funnel wherein you're building that brand. And I think that is absolutely critical. The more you build brand here, the easier your bottom of the funnel actions are going to be.
For a very small startup, what is the simplest way that you would recommend to use machine learning or analytics to, like you were saying, how do I get to know each of my leads who are flowing in, each of those who are experiencing my brand, each of those who are trying to work with my brand, or uh, on of, I mean, if I do not have as many resources to pledge.
I think the fundamental mistake that startups make is that they build product first and then they try to build brand. Fundamental, right? Now, if I look at an interesting alternative, it is to build brand before you build a product. The best possible potential example of this is a non-digital one, Patanjali. So you had your Baba Ramdev, who was actually building out through the Astha channel way before Patanjali came into the fore. A huge amount of trust was generated for brands, okay, which Patanjali represented, because the spokesperson of that brand already had built that connection with that cohort, that target audience, through a specific channel of distribution. Most people don't do that. All startups think, oh, I've got a great idea. I'm going to build this widget. I'm going to do this. I build it first. And then I say, oh, how do I market it? How do I achieve product market fit? And how do I actually, go to, so you're using data wrong. The reason why you're using data wrong is because you are trying to use data after you have actually done everything. Use data to build the right brand first. So How do you do that? You invest in understanding what stories does your customer like, what values does your customer actually resonate with, what values will that customer make, will make that customer trust you. So if you can get data points on that and start building your brand out way before your product is ready, it is always excellent.
That really should work. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think we look at a reverse cycle where most of us have built something and then we spend years to look out for the right one to buy that.
Yeah.
And that's where majority of what our struggle is lies in, that it's so hard to find the one that we were thinking of when we were building it.
Yeah.
We're saying you build the brand first, you understand what problem needs to be solved, you understand who are you solving it for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you know who is it, what is it, why is
Yes.
it,
Yes.
can you build or that
Yeah.
is
Isn't that way easier actually?
absolutely
It's way, yeah.
great. For a startup again, how is it that what's the simplest way to keep things very dynamic if there are a million leads that they target in 1 year, so to say, what are some of the channels that you would recommend a brand like ourselves to be on? And secondly, for a small team, what do you recommend can be, which multiple ways do we, or do you recommend a brand to use when we're trying to action on those points and experience of any learner or student that are the key points or the key highlights of their journey when they're trying to choose the right course? So, for instance, if there's someone who wants to study a MICA course, one of those students is entering my funnel 2 weeks prior to the course start. One of them is entering the funnel 1 year prior. How do I? The point is, I'm just trying to ask you, what are the ground level up steps that I can take? And for a student who's looking for a course, what are some of the ways that you recommend I would like to be reached out on, or I can experiment as a brand to reach out to them if they were, let's say, looking at us from their workplace or looking at a brand in the night when they're back from the workplace? Or I'm trying to still think if this is for me or not. What are some of the steps that I take as a brand? Like you were mentioning, Nike would never accept getting to know their leads from someone else. They would want to develop an active source
Yeah.
of. So how do you look at that? I just want to break it down in the most simplest form that there could be to this.
Yeah. So first of all, forget about the million people. I think what you need to do is get to your 1,000 super fans.
Mhm.
Right. So who are your Kevin Kelly has put this on record. What's a super fan? Well, a super fan is somebody who really, really genuinely likes you, believes in your brand, trusts your brand, and wants to help you and wants to be part of your story because that resonates so much with his story. Now, these typical super fans are either early adopters or innovators rather than the risk averse early majority. Now, if I have to simplify it for a startup, see, upGrad is not a startup right now. upGrad is an early majority or even late majority as far as the big brand is concerned. For you, for upGrad abroad, you might be a startup and you might be still in the early adopters or innovators stage, which is different. But essentially, for let's say you guys as a unit of upGrad or any other startup, you have to understand your early adopters and innovators. And you have to understand who your potential 1,000 super fans are going to be. Because once you get that, you've got virality in motion. So instead of trying to boil the ocean, what you're doing is simplifying it by saying, who are the 1,000 people who are going to just enjoy what we are doing? B, actually get their friends on, and C, create some virality in terms of marketing for me in the outside world with the right cohorts. I think that redefines the problem in a very strategic way.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I think at this point we've got about 6K or close students who are now studying with us or have moved to
Yeah.
the school in the US or UK or Germany where they wanted to go. I think that now is a good time for us to, of course, look at who these students. I mean, of course, we do speak to them often, but I get your point. I think you're saying as long as you get to know them, you
Yeah.
will actually know who really is it that is signing up for you.
Yeah.
What were they initially looking for? How did you help them?
Yeah.
So, as per you, the key is to talking the most to those who already use your brand and
Yeah.
what to change them rather than always trying to be on the lookout for who else, who else, who else, who
Yeah,
else.
yeah, exactly. Because the deeper you know your 1,000 super fans, you're going to get more.
Absolutely, that does make so much sense. And I think for a brand like us, it's not difficult to spot that because they normally
It's
reach.
not. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wow. At this point, I'd love for anyone else on this call to ask us or ask Sir any doubt or query or any real time uh, complexity that you're trying to solve, but would love for you to put down anything you want to know on the Q&A button that should be at the bottommost tab of your Zoom call. And I would love to take that up. Sir, one of the other things that I've always heard or learned about is that marketing can never be studied or taught. You experience it and you learn. And that makes us or makes our job very difficult when we're trying to sell that, hey, here's a course on marketing in the United States where you're going to spend about 25 or 30 lakhs and you will go and study marketing in depth for a year. The common rebuttal is you can't really learn it because it's so hyper dynamic that it's changing every day. And how do you look at that complexity and what would you say to our viewers on taking up a marketing course? For instance, we're just about to launch a marketing course that largely talks about what you and I were speaking about and works with different brands in the US. Um, this course is essentially from one of the top 100 schools in the US and is in a pathway with MICA. But I really want you to speak on the fact that why is it that if you formally learn about marketing, formally learn about the nuances, it can make so much more difference in the lens that then you view different brands with and break it down and say, here's what I learned and here's how that works. Here's how I learned and here's how this works. Your views on this.
There's so many different layers to why you should learn marketing or any discipline formally. So we were talking of the 1,000 superfans thing, which I was basing on the law of diffusion of innovation. Now that's a theoretical construct. It's a framework which you will learn only in marketing class, right? Now, the fact is that we applied it to real life and made it really practical. What we keep hearing from students is, I need practical stuff. I don't need theory. But actually, a good theory can make practical stuff very easy because it's actually helping you see the same reality in a different way. And great professors allow you to see that theory and connect it to practicality in a very different way. So that's the reason you should go to learn theory that is taught by a brilliant professor who is able to make life practically easy for you. So that's how I see it, right? I wouldn't look at the arguing for people who are saying, "Nee, nee, marketing is all about practicing." Yes, but are you practicing it the right way? Are you actually practicing it in a way that is smart, that is intelligent, that is strategic? And that is where those inputs come in. The second is look at the learning that happens because of your peer network. Okay. That sort of interaction you're never going to get. Yeah, that sort of interaction, either if it's online or offline or a combination or hybrid, You're never going to get that sort of interaction with your professional colleagues who are always going to be politically out to get you, right? So a professional network like this is a great interaction with some fantastic minds who are learning with you. And so therefore, they're also doing with you. And thirdly, who said that learning is only about sitting in a classroom and learning a subject? There is a lot of doing involved through cases and through various other methods. So you have all these reasons why you should be looking at formal education in some way or the other.
Absolutely, and it makes so much sense. I think what you answered is not just limited to marketing, but
Yeah, it's everywhere.
I mean, no matter what domain you're studying, there's always a solid reason why when you go to a school, it makes so much more difference to how the lens that then you will develop to look at
Yeah.
life. We've got a few of these.
Yeah.
We were asking you a couple of things, sir.
Sure.
Aki is asking you why companies fail after growing big time, even when they have all the capital, all the brand, all the power in the world. So largely, how do we reinvent our cycle, and why is that important?
So why, so sorry, why do companies fail? Because
So she's written why companies fail after growing big time, even if they have all the brand, money, and power. Essentially, I think
yeah,
what
because brand money and power don't mean anything, right? What happens is your story connecting? Is your story resonating? Does it still make sense? Now, for all the brand and the money and the power in the world, it did not help big companies who were defeated by technology. Today, we have Google, which is sweating because of ChatGPT. Okay, because people have found an easier way to get what they want. People don't want to search, people want to find, right? And ChatGPT has suddenly changed the game. So all the money, all the capital in the world is good to have, but eventually you have to be connected at some point in time, at some level, with the story that this person is trying to lead. Everybody is the main character in their own lives, isn't it? So what we are trying to do is help them be that main character.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, I think only a fraction of those you serve as a brand would essentially rely on what you've always believed in and built. I think when our stories change, like you said, they expect and we expect brands to change.
Yeah.
We expect brands to influence
Yeah.
us to head in the direction where the world is expecting us to head. And who's going to be a biggest partner would largely decide who do I forge trust with.
Yeah.
I especially love the approach that Nike takes, the way you were speaking. It's not just one fraction of what I'm doing with them, but my workout, my fitness,
Yeah.
who I'm learning from.
Yeah.
What am I doing all day, and what is the healthiest way to live? When you're looking at all of this and the fact that so many of us are not healthy anymore or would want to be healthier, and the fact that they're doing everything they can to lead us that way.
Yeah.
They could just still trying to sell shoes and they would still do fine. But how a different course.
Exactly.
Wow. So we've got one more. He says we are talking about marketing, but how do we get consumers to come to us or use what we're selling, essentially, and who we are? So I think what he's trying to sell is how do I design campaigns? Do I do it in person? Do I do it online? How do I get leads to flow in? Which is very broad, but
Yeah. No, I think there's an underlying thing that, okay, I'm trying to sell, I'm trying to get numbers, I'm trying to whatever, and you're trying to say, don't actively go for those numbers. What are you saying? You know, I think this, I detect a lot of that with a lot of these questions, and that's fair enough, fair play. I think what we don't understand, what we really don't understand is that in order for you to jump or take the longest leap and get the best results, you have to go a little back. So if you start jumping from where you are all the time, you're not going to have too far a jump, are you? So the fact is that you should literally, to get more sales, stop doing what you're doing right now to get sales, because that clearly is not working. That's not working because of the difference in the message and the residue that we were talking about. I keep saying, I'm honest, and you're saying, what a liar, right? So the fact is, you need to figure out a method, a story which connects to the value system of this customer. Spend your time there, sales will become easier. That's how you use marketing to create more sales. You got to invest more time at the top of the funnel. Otherwise, the bottom of the funnel is going to run dry for you, which I suspect is happening.
Got it. Great. We've got one more. Building a brand first strategy is a long process. How can one ensure to have a parallel world to create brand plus your product and create trust in those who are trying to work with your brand? So how do you run these three things at the same time?
I think that you've got to understand that whatever you do is building your brand. So it's actually one thing that you're doing. It's not three things. So you can either build your brand through image building or through the experience that you're giving or whatever. If you look at the fact that you're building your brand through each and every action, then what actions will you choose? So that's one way in which you can look at it. The second thing that you have to understand is build your brand today. You will find it easier to do it on a day-to-day basis. Do not expect miracles to happen, right? But if you've given yourself the runway of whatever time which you did not have because you were only building product or you were only doing this, it will give you an unfair advantage with all the others who are building product first and then bringing it back to the market.
So essentially what you're saying is whatever goods or services you're selling, whatever you're designing, whatever message you're relaying, whatever you're doing at every single point, that builds your brand. And
That
you've got
builds a brand. Yeah.
very mindful. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. You're saying everything has to reinforce your brand. If you are clear on what your brand is.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well said.
Got it. Got it. Wow. So these are not three different things. This is then just one thing.
Absolutely.
How
Yeah.
you and what is the message you're bringing out of it. Got
All
it.
one thing. Yeah.
So we've got one more. How to engage a customer in this AI age? As you know, AI is generating a lot of content within a few minutes, and by anybody who does not have any experience in that field. How to engage with consumers as their attention span will be a lot more lesser, and how do you convince them? I hope you could make sense of what he's trying.
I can. I think attention spans are not reducing. We are producing boring stuff. I think we are giving a lot of information out there, which is very boring. We are, as customers, we are binge watching, right? So binge watching just tells us that we are not, our attention spans are not reducing if the content is amazing. So therefore, we are rejecting because we are getting more sophisticated. We are rejecting stuff which is boring. So let's understand that first. The second thing is, how do I actually look at then leveraging this sort of attention and making something meaningful out of it? I think that the critical aspect of creating is everything should, there is an instinctive understanding that this has been created by a bot right now. So if I read all those LinkedIn guys who are suddenly putting long posts on LinkedIn, wherein there are, a lot of bullet points and all of that, you can smell the AI in it. Yeah, you can. And the reason why you can smell the AI in it is because it is done by AI. Now, if you're doing it as a human being, you and I are both humans. We'll be able to smell it. It's an instinctive thing. Now, can AI get better 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line? Yes. So you should invest in AI. You should understand. But once you get an answer from Chat GPT, okay, make the answer better and make it human. And that might mean that you post lesser, but it will still connect to your 1,000 true fans. And that's where the magic lies.
Great. I think that makes so much sense. Sure. We've got one more thing, sir.
Sure.
Why, and I'm assuming this will be your last one in the best interest of time. Why organic cosmetic brands are so short-lived in recent time? What had been happening in the past, she says, is that we didn't change brands that often. But now everyone's open to trying new brands, which is quite welcoming, but still creates a fear among startups. And so she says, is vigorous marketing creating a short-lived hype among uh, consumers? And what is the recent trend with organic cosmetics? I feel sustaining our position is quite hectic. And so is it right to build something new, or is it the right thing to do to build a new marketing strategy? What are your views on it, sir?
So I think there's a lot of things going in the cosmetics, fashion, lifestyle segment. All of them are essentially connected to a movement of sorts. So either you're in the sustainability movement, or you're in the fast fashion world, or you are in something which is inclusivity, and so on and so forth. So all brands are taking a position and connecting to a movement. Now, some brands are connecting just for the sake of connecting, and then they move ahead, and then they move, and you can see that. Since some brands are invested in it for the long haul. Now, what the question is that why the marketing cycle seems to be hastening, and it seems that it's very difficult, and there's so much of investment going in marketing. My answer is that means that you're marketing for the product, not for the brand. So if I look at product-based marketing, it means that you are just selling functional benefits. You're selling, hey, this is my new line, this is a new line of cosmetics, etc. And that is okay. But that's at one level. The second level is your story, what you stand for. And that, you has bigger legs. So you can say, oh, I'm going to see, for example, I'm going to see the latest who else? Tom Cruise film, because I like Tom Cruise. Now that is a storyline that has happened, which is across all Tom Cruise films. And then you can do film marketing, which is okay, Mission Impossible, something is coming, and so therefore uska marketing hai. So you have the ability to market at various levels, and that is what every marketer should be looking at. There is always a longer term and there is a shorter term game.
Which is essentially true. I think it's not just for this domain. I think for anything that we're not running by.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest forces, sir, is the access that we have now more than ever. So you can't compare where you and I were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But we can compare, which I got from your story, is the way I get influenced may not really change, but you've got to know me.
Yeah, you got to know me.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to know me. If you know me, then you'll know how I'll change my story as well. You have to know a person's algorithm before you try to fix a platform's algorithm.
So I'm trying to think that it's almost inevitable that as a brand, supposedly Zara, every single person shopping on Zara.com has to be known in depth by Zara. How frequently are they buying what they're buying? What are they buying? What is the general trend in what they're buying? What is the mutual?
Sure.
And then Zara decides the way you were saying, which is the kind of fashion they're believing in, whether they're inclusive or fast.
Yeah.
They want to have a storyline linked to it.
Absolutely.
How is that cloth getting made, and what are we wasting, what are we not? So I get what you're saying, but I think, like you said, who am I is the biggest thing that I need to say.
Yeah, that's the biggest one.
We're almost at the end, I think. Would you want to take one more, or do we?
Sure, no, not a problem.
Just one last one. How to grow the business which comes at stable or static position? I don't quite know what she's trying to ask, but if you do, we can answer that, or I can ask her to rephrase it, but she is saying how to grow the business which comes at stable or static position.
Yeah. So maybe the question is, I am not growing, and I'm just stable and static for, maybe that's the question. So you are not growing because you do not have the ability to connect to people who are outside of your category or who are well entrenched with competition, right? And the reason is that your competition is doing a better job than you actually keeping the things with them. But what you have to also understand is that you've kept your customers as well, which is why you're not declining, you're stable, you're static, but you also have customers. So again, go back to the super fans theory and ask yourself, first of all, how can I get more customers who are like the ones who are loyal to me? So that becomes a very different question than how can I get customers from competition or how can I grow the category? What you have to say is, okay, I got these 1,000 people who really seem to be liking me. Okay, how can I get more of these people? Where can I find them? What can I say to them? For that, talk to your 1,000 super customers, super fans who are already with you. And you will be able to then grow people like that, because you'll know this is the kind of guy you're looking at. Don't look at blind growth, because if you look at blind growth, you might get customers who do not share your value system and therefore will start making your name bad in the marketplace, which is the worst thing to happen. Look at people who are already with you, understand the kind of customer you want to have, and then try to grow, and you will certainly grow.
That would still stay the case if I had 100 different ones, which I had to put different ways.
Oh yeah.
The point is to address who is it that is coming to me, and if they mean important to me, and if they, I need to have a personalized strategy for them in place if I have to grow my brand. Yes,
Absolutely.
it's been great having you. Yeah, I have myself learned so much more about marketing and how do I look at a brand. I think our dialogue was not limited to just marketing, but how do you in general look at a brand, and what does a brand really mean is how we started it. So much excitement to this. I think there's so much homework to do when I go back to my workplace and see. I think it's a new lens that you've given, not just to
Thank you
me.
so much.
Uh,
Thank you.
it has been great. So, for the final word, would you like to tell them or talk to them or leave one short, quick message for our viewers?
I'm always creating crazy content on Instagram or on LinkedIn, where you can find me at The Traveling Professor. And I also run a podcast called Smarter with Sid, which is there on Spotify. It's got over 300 episodes, 10 minutes each, because I know that you don't like boring stuff, all of you. So, I would say, know what your brand is from this lens. Know who your 1,000 super fans are. I think that's the absolute key for all of us.
Absolutely. I think the next step for us is to come at Micah someday and attend one of your lectures or space that you're hosting. But I just wanted all of our viewers to know that we're soon launching a digital marketing master science course at a school in the United States with Micah. This is essentially going to be about 7 or 8 months with Micah online, and then you go to the United States and you study for 12 months. I think, like Sir was saying, formal higher ed in marketing can change your entire perspective to real life scenarios and how you would look at the world as a marketer. And we recognize that, and the course that we're bringing is going to be the first of its kind. We've never really invested so much in a marketing course in the past. We've had AI, machine learning, and blah blah blah. But I really feel that if at this point you know that's what you want to move to the next step, I mean, I am 100% affirmative about that. And we will soon reach out to you with all the course and info on the cost. But I think more to say, if that course is really for you and what would it mean for you? What are some of the jobs in the US that you can get? And we will be in touch. I'm just going to give all of you my email address so you can write to me to follow up for that. And I wish you all the best. And thanks so much, sir.